Well, hi everyone, and greetings from Northern Michigan. This is Bob the Science Guy. A couple of weeks ago I had a rather popular video that went through the method Al-Biruni to determine the radius of the Earth. Now, a number of the viewers asked me to go through the mathematics behind it, and true to my word, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's cue up the music and have some fun with math. Okay, the method Al-Biruni has two different parts to it. The first part is to try to determine the height of the mountain. Say we have a mountain next to a lake, and this bottom line right here will be the level of the lake. If you were to look at this from the top, here's the mountain right here, and then here's the lake, and we have this little peninsula coming out. Now we've got 2 points, point A and point B, that are right on the lake shore, so that we know that they are at the same level as the base of the mountain. And we know the distance between those 2 points because we can measure it very easily. So let's see how we can use that to determine the height of the mountain. In trigonometry, we've got a couple of different functions. We have sine, we have cosine, and then we have one called tangent. So the sine would be h over the hypotenuse. The cosine is this base, which is CA over the hypotenuse. Then we have something called the tangent, which is the opposite side over the adjacent side. So the tangent equals h over CA for this angle right here, and we're going to call this omega 1. Now we're getting someplace. Now, if we could only figure out what one of these sides was, we don't really need to know the hypotenuse. So the sine and the cosine aren't going to help us very much because we don't have an accurate way to measure the hypotenuse. But we theoretically could measure this, and we want to determine h. So how would we do that? Well, let's say we go over here to B, and we get a second angle, this angle right here. We'll call that omega 2. So let's go ahead and have a look at some things here. First of all, and remember, this is the distance between these two. So the distance equals CA minus CB. That's pretty straightforward. But what do CA and CB equal? We do know that the tangent of 1 equals h over CA. And the tangent of angle 2 equals h over CB. So we can rearrange that a little bit and say that CA equals h divided by the tangent of angle 1, and CB equals h divided by the tangent of angle 2. That's pretty straightforward. So now let's go back up to this expression right here. So D will equal CA, which is h over the tangent of angle 1, minus CB, which is h over the tangent of angle 2. Well, let's see if we can make this a little bit more useful. Now, one of the problems that we run into is that we have different denominators here. So if we cross multiply, we can get the same denominator. So let's do that. So D equals h times the tangent of angle 2 minus h times the tangent of angle 1 over tangent 1 times tangent 2. That's just basic cross multiplication to get a common denominator. Now what we want to solve for is this h. So we can rewrite this a little bit. like so. Finally, to isolate this, we get to our final equation. So we're going to divide d by this entire term here to isolate out h. And that will equal that. Now we have solved for h. Okay, so let's take a practical example. Say we have a mountain of unknown height, and we have 2 points on a line to that mountain that are 1 kilometer or 1,000 meters apart. Angle 1 is 14 degrees, and angle 2 is 26.6 degrees. Well, the tangent of 14 degrees is 0.25, and the tangent of 26.6 is 0.5. We come down here and multiply the distance between the two, which is 1,000 meters, times tangent 1 times tangent 2 over tangent 2 minus tangent 1, and we come up with a height, which is 500 meters. Now, when Al-Biruni did this, his mountain was 884 meters high. Now, I can already hear the flat earthers complaining that we made the calculations based on a flat surface. Now, obviously, the Earth's surface is curved, and because there is a curve to it, there will be a slight error in the measurement of the height of the mountain. The reason for that is that the mountain will actually be a little lower the further you get away from it, because it's going over the curve of the Earth and we're missing some of the bottom. So I made a correction for that. So here's how I set up my problem. I've got a mountain that's 1,500 feet high, and my 2 points are much farther away than Al-Biruni would have used. I went 1 nautical mile and 2 nautical miles. Now, the reason that I'd used nautical miles is each nautical mile is approximately 1 minute of angle on the surface of the Earth, or 1/60th of a degree. So I would have to make a correction of 1/60th of a degree to the angle to the top of the mountain from the near point, and 2/60ths or 1/30th of a degree from the farthest point. And I went ahead and did that. Calculating it on a strictly flat surface, I came up with 1,499 feet for the height of the mountain. Calculating it on a curved surface and making the corrections, I came up with 1,511 feet for the height of the mountain, or an error of about 0.8%. I think I can live with that. Okay, so now we have determined the height of this mountain. Let's see if we can use it to determine the radius of the Earth. Here's the setup of our problem. When we stand at the top of the mountain, we can measure an angle down to the apparent horizon, and we're going to call that angle alpha. Angle alpha plus this angle right here will equal 90 degrees. So this angle is 90 degrees minus angle alpha. This is a right angle, and it is 90 degrees, and we know that the internal angles of a triangle equal 180 degrees. So if this is 90 degrees, and this angle is 90 degrees minus angle alpha, that means that this angle is also angle alpha down here. Now again, we're going to turn to a little trigonometry and see if we can figure out a couple of values here. We know, for example, that that value, where our line of sight is tangential to the horizon and the radius, is the radius of the Earth. This distance from the top of the mountain is the radius of the Earth plus h. So let's figure this out with a little trigonometry. Let's start off with cosine alpha equals r over r plus h. Now what we want to isolate is r, so what we'll do is we'll take cosine alpha times r plus h equals r. That also means that cosine alpha times r plus cosine alpha times h equals r. So h times cosine alpha equals r minus r cosine alpha. Removing r from this, we find that h times cosine alpha equals r times 1 minus cosine alpha. Bringing this around, we find that h times cosine alpha divided by 1 minus cosine alpha equals r. So let's use a real-life example from Wolfie's 60/20. He was flying along at 45,000 feet and noted a dip angle to the horizon of 3.75 degrees. The cosine of 3.75 degrees is 0.998. So we'll plug our numbers in. 45,000 feet times 0.998 divided by 1 minus 0.998 gives us this number of feet, which works out to 4,252.84 miles. The actual radius of the Earth is 3,958.8 miles, giving us an error of 7%. Now, where does that error come from? The main error comes from right here. This assumes that we have a straight line of sight from the top of the mountain to the horizon. However, as we know, on Earth we have a phenomenon called refraction. Now, refraction actually causes the light to bend a little bit, like so. And as a result, when we look out at the horizon actually appears to be a little higher than it truly is. This is called looming. And this will result in us overestimating the radius of the Earth slightly. And as we said, it's about 7%. That's not too bad. Now this curve has a radius to it. And that radius is independent of what's underneath it. So it doesn't care whether the Earth is spherical or flat. A good way to estimate what the radius of that curve will be is about 7 over 6 r. And that will give you the radius of that curve on Earth. That's the only reason that we involve the radius of the Earth in that equation. It's just a way to estimate the actual radius of this curve. Another source of error could be the accuracy of the dip to the horizon. Recall that that was determined by Wolfie using flight instruments, not survey instruments. Well, thank you guys very much for stopping by, and I hope that you now have an appreciation for the elegance of mathematics and the power of mathematics and the usefulness in our day-to-day lives. Now, one other point that I wanted to make was that Al-Biruni made his observations from 884 meters, not 45,000 feet. And he was also using an astrolabe, which at best is accurate to a quarter or maybe a sixth of a degree. So the very fact that he came up with a radius of the Earth that corresponded to that found by Eratosthenes without the need to travel to two different points some 500 miles apart speaks to the elegance of trigonometry. So, signing out from Northern Michigan, this is Bob the Science Guy. Thank you very much for visiting with me. Next time, we're going to have a look at how we can calculate a radius from a great circle course. So until then, take care and see you soon.